Hi everybody, happy Blockheads Wednesday and welcome we are on block 3 of group 2 of Blockheads 5. Whew, that's a mouthful. So this week our block is Shimmer Star by April Rosenthal, and she has designed a really lovely block for us with lots of fun elements. This is going to be a fun one to put together. So this is my finished version of Shimmer Star and I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to walk you through making this block. So grab your pattern, grab your fabrics, and let's get sewing. Okay, let's take a look at our pattern pieces. This week we're going to be making some little 4-patch checkerboard units. So got the squares for those. And then we're going to make some quarter square triangles. So I've got my squares cut in half diagonally to make those. And then we have this little framed center unit. So here's the square and the rectangles for those. Our first step is going to be to make these little 4-patch checkerboard units. So I'll take my squares and go get those stitched up. I like to chain piece as much as possible, and I always make sure that whatever fabric I'm going to be pressing my seam towards, I put that one on top when I'm sewing. So I want to press towards this this darker fabric here, my yellow, and so I'm gonna I put the yellow squares on top. Okay, my little 4-patch units are done. I pressed towards the darker fabric and when I was making the pairs, and then when I put them together into the little 4-patch unit, I pressed that seam open. And I trimmed these up to 2.5 inches, and now I'm ready to put these aside and move to the next step, which is to make the quarter square triangles. And we're going to start by sewing together these 2 triangles along the straight edge here. So these used to be squares like this, and we cut them in half diagonally, and now we're going to turn them and sew along one of the straight edge. Placement does matter for this one, so we always want to make sure that that D square is on the left. So since it's my darker square, I want to press towards that, so I'll probably rotate around this way when I'm sewing so I can do my chain piecing and then press open towards the dark fabric, so that when I turn it around and sew it to my other half of my triangle, it's on the left. So just keep your placement in mind when you're sewing these triangles together. Okay, I've got my DE triangle sewn together and I've pressed towards the darker triangle. So now I'm going to sew my larger C triangle to my DE unit here. Actually, my DE unit is going to be just a little bit bigger than my C triangle, and that's okay. So I'm just going to kind of line up the point of my C triangle right along that seam there. And then we'll sew a scant 1/4 inch seam here and press towards the C triangle. Okay, I've got my quarter square triangles sewn together and pressed towards the C triangle. So now I just need to trim these down to the size in the pattern. I'm making the 6-inch block, so I'm going to trim these down to 2.5 inches. The pattern is written so that your quarter square triangles are going to be oversized for you to trim down. So let me show you how you want to trim them down. So right here is my 1 1/4 mark. So that's the halfway point of my 2.5 inch block or unit. So I'm going to line up this point right here where my the seam of my 2 triangles here meets, and so that's how I'm going to get this to be nice and squared up when I trim it down. So just make sure that you line up your 1 1/4 inch point right here where the seams meet. That's where you want your 1 1/4 inch mark to be on your ruler, and then trim down to 2.5 inches from there. Okay, my quarter square triangles are all squared up and trimmed up. I just said that you would want to have this point at the 1 1/4 inch mark on your ruler. That's for the 6-inch block. If you're making the 12-inch block, you'll trim these to 4 1/2 inches. So you'll want your 2 1/4 inch mark to be right there. So just wanted to clarify that. Okay, these are all ready to go, so I can put these aside. And the next step will be to make this framed center unit for our block, and then we'll be ready to start assembling. Okay, I've got my center unit done. I pressed out towards the rectangles on this one, by the way. If you wanted that center square to pop a little bit more, you could press towards the center square. All right, now all my units are done and I'm ready to start assembling my block. I've got it all laid out here, so let's start sewing those rows together. Usually on a block like this, I will press out towards the corner units and I'll press in towards the center unit, but I have done the opposite on this one. I just felt like the block was calling me to press towards the quarter square triangles, so that's what I did. My seams will still nest very nicely, so that's great, but I just pressed in a different direction than I usually press. And that's part of the reason that we don't always give pressing instructions. Like my coworkers, Allison and Lisa say, sometimes you just got to let the fabric tell you where it wants to be pressed. So in this case, it was saying press towards the quarter square triangle. So that's what I did. I will press my row seams open. I always do that, and trim it up and we'll be done. And here is my finished shimmer block. Now, some of you eagle-eyed folks may have noticed that in the previous frame, I had my corner units placed incorrectly. I had them rotated. So I tell you that as a cautionary tale. I didn't notice it until after I had already sewn my whole block together and trimmed it, which was a real bummer. Anyway, I love how my shimmer block turned out. Thank you so much, April, for a really fun block. And don't forget to post your finished blocks in our Facebook group and on Instagram, and tag us at Moda Fabrics and use the hashtag Moda Blockheads 5. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week and happy sewing.